Hi guys! I did a video the other day on how the first rains of the wet season had arrived and it was all going to get a lot cooler from now on in. No, it is a steady 29 degrees today and I am not coping with this weather. I am actually drinking a warm cup of tea because apparently hot drinks make you cooler faster because they raise the blood vessels to your skin and that cools you down through sweating quicker than drinking colder drinks, which make all the heat go to your stomach. I don't know. I am finding that I don't think anything helps anymore. So now back home in Kigali, and I thought what we'd do today is another best things about Rwanda video. What these are is throughout the weeks and months and days and years, I poll viewers about what they think are the best things in Rwanda. So that can be anything from food to like tourist attractions to just anything really. And then every so often we'll just do a video like this where we go back through the poll results to find out what people think about things. Today we're kicking off with a really straightforward one, which is just which is the best fruit in Rwanda. And I'm going to be averting my eyes because my screen is down here, and we had passion fruit, watermelon, tree tomato and pineapple. Somebody did actually ask what no mangoes or avocados. Unfortunately, with these polls, I can only ask 4 options. With the text polls, I think that you can ask more, but with the image polls, you can only ask 4, I think. So I was a bit limited, so I went for the most popular ones. And out of 69 votes, it was a pretty even spread. Nothing really came out far ahead of everything else. So passion fruit a little bit at 30%. Passion fruit is lovely, isn't it? It's lovely in a juice. It's got that lovely kind of sourness to it that's also a little bit sweet. It's kind of a unique flavour that you just don't really find in anything else. You can't really compare to anything else. Watermelon, which I have to admit, I've got a watermelon in my fridge at the moment because in this weather, oh my goodness, it's just blissful. Tree tomato, which, yeah, you know me, I don't really like Tamarillo that much, but I find it a bit too sour without any kind of sweetness or benefit, but other people absolutely love it. Who commented? Todoro24 said Ibinyamoro are the best, and that is the Kinyarwanda name for tree tomato, Ibinyamoro. So people do like that a lot. And pineapples, which came out at 26%, so just behind maracuja. So passion fruit, maracuja I think is a Swahili word, that's what we call it here a lot. It does have a Kinyarwanda word, which is amatunda, but a lot of people just call it maracuja, and I think that's a Swahili word. So maracuja, passion fruit came out top, closely followed by pineapple, and then watermelon, tree tomato tying at the bottom. But I had an interesting comment from Nolan McCain, who said, watermelon is new in Rwanda. I first heard of it in 2008, and it doesn't have a Kinyarwanda name yet. So passion fruit, amatunda, tree tomato, ibinyamoro, and pineapple, inanasi, which comes from the French ananas, are more well known because they have Kinyarwanda names. And Nola McCain suggested that more people voted for tree tomatoes because they take longer to grow than other fruits. But I would question that because I have a friend who grows pineapples, and she said that they take, up to a year to produce one pineapple. And when I looked into this, from the time of planting, it takes them about 18 months to a year to start to fruit, and then that can take anywhere up to 6 months or longer to actually ripen into a pineapple. So pineapples are extremely slow growing fruit, and tree tomatoes are as well, but of course you get more of them on a tree than a single pineapple. So I don't know, I think both tree tomatoes and pineapples take a long time to grow, so they're both quite slow growing fruit, the pineapple and the tree tomato. Okay, so I think that's enough about fruit for now. Let me know which one your favourite is, and if you want to join in with these polls, just check check under the community tab on my channel. I think if you're browsing on your phone, you will see them go past if you're subscribed. So do subscribe and like the videos to see more of them. And then you will probably see the polls go past on your phone. If you're looking on your laptop, just go to my channel and under the community tab, you find the posts. So that's how you can join in with this. All right, so there wasn't really a massive overall winner on that one. I just think everybody likes fruit. So that's good. Whatever your favourite fruit is, doesn't matter. Fruit is good. So the next poll up here is something that's quite dear to my heart. You might have seen a while ago, I was talking about folklore with my friend Fermin. So I decided to ask everybody who their favourite Rwandan folk hero is. So we've got bakame, maguru, ndabaga and ryangombe. Don't laugh at my pronunciation of ryangombe. Everybody laughs at it, but that to me is how you would say it as an Anglophone, ryangombe. And I, for some reason, can't say it properly because everybody laughs at me. I think the R changes more to an L, so Lagombe maybe comes across a bit better in Kinyarwanda. I don't know. Let me know how you pronounce it below, but I say Ryangombe. Sorry. But we're all talking about the same person here. So for those outside Rwanda who don't know Rwandan folklore, bakame is sort of like the Loki of Rwanda. So Loki is the trickster god of Norse mythology. And bakame is kind of like that. He usually appears as a hare, so a long-eared rabbit. And he is well known as being a trickster and he likes to play tricks on people. But he usually turns out to be fairly fair in the end. So there are lots of different stories about bakame, and he's one of those folk heroes or folk characters that just can get inserted into different stories that require a little bit of mischief. So Maguru is the long-legged warrior, and he's most famous for a particular story called Maguru and Sibika. So Maguru and Nsibika. Where he goes out into the forest. And again, it's a trickster story because Nsibika is the foe that Maguru comes up against, and Nsibika is a shapeshifter, so can change form. And Nsibika changes its form to try and capture Maguru. I've talked about this story before, so I won't repeat it here. If you want to know the story, check out my other video where I go into the story a bit more. But Maguru is one of my favourites because when I first came to Rwanda, like years and years ago, there was a fantastic reggae band here called Holy Jar Doves, and they actually took the story of Maguru and they turned it into a song. So they basically turned the entirety of the story into a reggae song, and they would play at the clubs around Kigali at the time, and me and my friends would go out and we'd dance to that song, and it was really big at the time. So I have a lot of love for Maguru because of that song. So the other one is ndabaga. Now, ndabaga is fascinating because if you've seen the Disney movie Mulan, where the girl runs off to join the army to fight with the men, I think to help her father. I haven't actually watched that film, but I am familiar-ish with the story. But ndabaga is Mulan in Rwanda. It is exactly the same story pretty much. So Ndabaga is a young girl whose father goes off to fight as a warrior for the king, and nobody's allowed to leave the army unless they are replaced, and her father doesn't have a son to replace him, so she dresses up as a man and goes to replace her father. Now, the interesting part about this story is when I first ever heard it, I was told that she cut off her breasts to look more like a man. And then, like, about 10 years ago, I was helping to edit the national curriculum textbooks for English in Rwanda. And the story appeared again, but to make it age appropriate, she simply wrapped her breasts. And I think that the original is still correct. I think the original story is she cut them off. And of course, to make it age appropriate for the school textbooks in I think it was secondary school, she rapped them instead. But anyway, the outcome of the story is the same. The king discovers she's a woman, falls in love, and they get married. She becomes a queen. It's a fascinating story that you find it both in Rwanda and you find it in the Chinese legend of Mulan as well. So I think it really attests to the power of universal storytelling, that so many of these stories pop up again and again all around the world. It's fabulous. So then the next one is Ryangombe. I'm a little uncertain about talking about Ryangombe because he's sort of a cultic leader. So there are two kind of gods. There's Naibinge and Ryangombe, and one is male, one is female. And Ryangombe it's kind of hard to tell whether he was based on a real person and then deified, or whether he was always a god. And I find him really fascinating because he's one of these, like a crucifixion god. So around the world you see this same trope where gods die and then they're resurrected. So the Christians have that story, the Egyptians had that story. All around the world you find these gods who die and then they are reborn and they come back stronger. And the interesting thing about Ryangombe is he follows the first part of that, is that he's killed. Some of the stories sort of give a different account of whether or not it was a woman or a water buffalo. Some say that it's a woman who became a water buffalo, so a shapeshifter again. And in order to protect her calf, she kills Ryangombe. And he dies in the branches of the moko tree, which is a very sacred tree here with bright red flowers. They look like little flames or specks of blood. And when you see it in flower, it's instantly recognisable as the moko tree. It's interesting because he dies in a very spectacular fashion, but I don't think he comes back. If he does, I haven't heard that part of the story, so let me know below. But as far as I understand it, he just dies, which is very unusual for gods. When I'm thinking about gods, I'm thinking about in Ireland, the gods in Ireland die. So they live for a very, 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 very long time, like hundreds and hundreds of years. But eventually they do die, even though they are gods, which is kind of interesting. So not all gods in every culture are immortal. So I think maybe that's the same with Ryangombe. But he's a really strong folk kind of character. So I was asking, which of these do people think is the most interesting or the best folk hero? And Bakame came out on top, and I'm not surprised. He came out on top by quite a long way. It doesn't surprise me so much because he's one of these sort of folk characters that can just be inserted into stories. There are lots and lots of different stories about him. So I guess it's a very easy one if parents want to make up stories about Bakame to like teach their kids lessons and things. They just can, because he's that kind of character. You can bring him into anything and it sort of enhances the story. I'm surprised Maguru was so far down, because I think it's just me. I just have that soft spot for the Holy Jar Dove song. So, you know, maybe he's not really such a big deal. So Ryangombe came out pretty far ahead as well. He was the second. So Bakame, Ryangombe. Let me know why below, because I have to admit, it's one that I don't know so much about. So do tell me why below. So Bakame, Ryangombe, ndabaga, and then maguru. So let me know if you agree with those decisions below. Let me know if there's anybody you think is a bigger name than any of those that should have been there, and tell me why below, because I'm really interested in folklore. I love folk stories. I love learning about these things. So tell me all about it below. Okay, so the next one is a bit of a frivolous question. It's probably the daftest question I've ever asked. There isn't really any point to it, but just for entertainment value, I wanted to know what people's favourite colour in the Rwandan flag was. And this one actually surprised me a little bit because green came out ahead by a long, long way at 49%, followed by blue and then yellow. And the reason that surprised me is just because when I think of Gitenge, when I think about African fabric and the way people dress, bright colours are usually what I associate with Rwanda and Africa more generally. So it's kind of interesting to see that the most muted colour came out right ahead. There was actually a comment on here where Abua said the green part is dull. And I kind of agree with that. I mean, compared to the brightness of the yellow and the brightness of the blue, the green is, pretty understated. So again, it was kind of interesting that came out ahead. Of course, this poll means absolutely nothing. I think I was having like a slow news day, but it was an interesting one. So the last part of this video is not so much the best things in Rwanda as the best places you can get to from Rwanda. So I was looking through the list of places that RwandAir, the national airline in Rwanda, flies to, and I thought I'd ask people where they'd like to go. So the question was, out of the big destinations in Africa that RwandAir fly to, where would you most like to visit? And the ones that I put up there were Gabon, Nigeria, Zambia and Mali. I found it quite interesting what came back because Nigeria came well ahead. Nigeria came out 39%, closely followed by Zambia and then Gabon and Mali. And nobody left a comment to tell me why. So when you do vote on these, if you can tell me a bit about why you voted the way you did, that would be really interesting as well. So for me, for me, Nigeria, not so much. Nigeria is, it's so well known around the world, especially in the UK. We have a huge Nigerian community in the UK. As a writer and a reader, I think Nigeria is probably the country in Africa that I associate most with publishing and internationally acclaimed authors like Chinua Achebe, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie and Wole Soyinka. So, as a country in Africa, it's definitely culturally had a huge impact on the world. The reason I kind of shy away from Nigeria, though, is because whenever I think of like Lagos or Abuja, the first thing that comes to my mind is just big cities, like big cities. Like if somebody asked me, do you want to go to Dubai for the weekend? I'd probably say no, just because I am not really a city slicker. I like rainforests, beautiful landscape. I do love cities for museums. I'm a bit of a museum buff. I will go and seek out interesting museums. But on the whole, I just don't enjoy big cities. And when I think about Nigeria, I mostly think big cities. And that could be completely wrong. I'm sure there are huge, beautiful areas in Nigeria that are open, like savannah and countryside. I don't know. But it's just what comes to my head when I think of Nigeria. So I think if you're young and you want the nightlife and you want the shopping and you want that whole urban experience, I can see why Nigeria would be a draw. But for me, it's just not my bag, really. So Zambia, absolutely. They've got Victoria Falls, which is one of the biggest waterfalls in the world, which would definitely be very, very impressive to stand next to and to see that. And then the other two, Gabon and Mali. So I actually didn't know anything about Gabon until I saw it on the RwandAir flight destinations list. So a couple of years ago, RwandAir announced that they were adding a whole load of new destinations to their flight routes. And one of those was Gabon. And I was like, where's Gabon? So I looked that up and oh my goodness, every picture of that place looks incredible. They've got rainforests, they've got wildlife, they've got beaches. It looks glorious. And I was just like, wow, yeah. If I get money and time, I need to go and visit Gabon. It looks stunning. And then Mali is really interesting. So Mali in the medieval period was this huge centre of Islamic learning. There was a place called Timbuktu, and growing up in the UK, the word Timbuktu, or the place name Timbuktu, was kind of synonymous with a place that didn't exist, or somewhere that was very, very, very far away. So if somebody said, he's gone to Timbuktu, it meant, he's gone so far away, you're never going to see them again. And so growing up, I didn't really realise that Timbuktu was a real place. And then, you know, as an adult, of course, you read history and you realise, oh, Timbuktu actually does exist. It's not like this made up place that is just a really, really long way away. And Timbuktu was just this centre of learning. It was a massive university city in Africa, in West Africa. And it had such a huge role to play in preserving scripts and written documents and stories and knowledge. It was like the Alexandria of West Africa. And of course, to me, that is a massive appeal. I would love to go and see that. There's a fabulous documentary called Preserving the Libraries of Timbuktu, I think. I'll leave a link to that below because it's really, really interesting. And of course, the historical part of my brain is, yes, I want to see that. So for me, I'm just totally torn between Gabon and Mali because I would love to go to see Timbuktu and Mali, but at the moment it's perhaps not the safest place to visit. They've got a lot of problems there at the moment, conflict going on. And so really, you know, it's kind of like going to visit sort of Eastern DRC. It is a stunning, stunning place, but you're not entirely sure that it's a good idea right now. Probably at the moment, I might opt for Gabon. If I had the money and, you know, the time, I think Gabon would be an incredible place to go and visit just because it looks so beautiful. And there's a lot of nature there, you know, so... yeah, let me know if my preconceptions of Nigeria are wrong. If it's full of beautiful parks and, you know, waterfalls and things, let me know that below because I don't know. I don't know. So yeah, that's my bid there. I would love to go to Timbuktu, but I think for the time being, Gabon is probably top of my list. Okay, so having covered Africa, the next question was, which European city would you like to visit? And there were really only 3 big ones on there. So there's Paris, Brussels and London. And it was quite interesting that London came out ahead by quite a long way. It was quite funny because I decided to represent them all with towers. So you've got the Eiffel Tower in Paris, you've got Big Ben in London, and I'm sorry, I'm not entirely sure what the one depicted in Brussels is, but I just thought, well, they're all towers, so I'll add that. And it was quite funny because one of my viewers, Munengafero, asked, why didn't I use mannequin piss to represent Brussels? Now, if you don't know what this is, so Paris has got the Eiffel Tower, London's got Big Ben, and the biggest iconic tourist emblem in Brussels is actually a little boy peeing into a pool. It is a little boy called Mannequin Piss who is literally standing there holding his bits in his hand and just weeing into a pool. And people flock from all over the world to take pictures of this. I did a video about a day in Brussels and it's in that, you can go and have a look. But yeah, I should really have done that. And the reason I didn't is because about a day before posting this, I saw a cartoon online called Map of Every European City by somebody called Malachi Ray Rempen. And on this map, it basically genericized, if that's a word, every European city into, you know, all the features that they've all got in common. Like every single one of them has got like a tourist trap cathedral. Everyone's got a drug dealer park, you know, one of those parks you don't go to after dark because it's really dodgy. Everybody's got a hipster home brickwork. So like an old industrial estate, a bit like the quays in Gloucester that they've turned into like a shopping area and cafes. So it's kind of funny because you see the similarities between every single European city. And one of the things they've all got in common is some kind of tower. And that's why I decided to represent them all by the towers. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. It's interesting that Brussels is so far behind, yet it is the easiest one, I think, to get to. I mean, it's really simple to fly from Rwanda to Brussels. It doesn't take as long as everywhere else, I don't think. So I don't know if this plays a part or not. Maybe I'm overthinking this, but I mean, Each of those cities has got a long legacy of colonial rule and atrocities, and especially Belgium and Belgian Congo, that was really, really, really bad. So there's a bit of a long-running controversy in Brussels at the moment. Again, I covered that in my video, but you've got the Congolese quarter in Brussels where a lot of West Africans live. And then directly opposite that, you've got a huge statue of King Leopold, who committed incredible atrocities in Belgian Congo. I mean, really, really awful stuff. I might add a little link or two below if you're not familiar with this. But it just seems so kind of wrong that you've got this statue of him facing the Congolese quarter. And it doesn't really feel like things are as integrated in Brussels as they perhaps are in Paris. They definitely are in London. You know, there are lots of communities in London, very multicultural, and things tend to be quite well integrated, whereas in Brussels it felt a little bit odd. I've got to be honest, it felt a little bit odd. And I don't know that everybody's suggesting that you need to destroy the statue of Leopold, but you know, perhaps move it. Move it somewhere else so it isn't directly facing the Congolese quarter, because that feels a little bit antagonistic, you know. To be honest, it feels pretty wrong. So I don't know if that had any particular influence on this poll. Maybe it's just, you know, London is kind of cool. You know, it's a kind of cool city. And I'm not just saying that because I'm British. I like the fact that in London, there is something for everybody. You're interested in history, you've got museums, you've got the Globe Theatre, you're interested in nightlife, you're interested in cinema, you're interested in, I don't know, big parks and riding horses. There's something for everybody in London. And the architecture as well reflects that. You've got the old buildings in amongst the new buildings, and it's pretty cool. And also with Paris, I mean, Pompidou Centre, Eiffel Tower, the food in France. Oh, the food in France. You know, there's a lot to love about these places and a lot of associations with these places. And Brussels as well is a really nice city. I did enjoy being there, but maybe it's just not as well known as London and Paris to people who don't live in Europe. So anyway, I'm going to stop there, and if you agree with the poll results, let me know. If there's anything you strongly disagree with, let me know. If there's anything I left out that I should have included, let me know. It's all a very interesting ongoing conversation here. And the last little thing that I'm just going to drop in here is I am starting to get a little bit stuck for new ideas for polls. So if there's something that you think would be interesting to ask the viewership about, drop it in the comments below, and I might add it to the questions in the future. All right, hope you've enjoyed this. See you in the next one.